Hello, everyone. My name is Afa+Palu, and I'm so excited to share with you CoreCare. And this is a CoreCare training for today. So I want to thank you for your time and for being here. This is a product that is very important for us to know. And if we know this product, we'll be so happy to take them daily and be able to share them daily with others who are not taking CoreCare. This presentation is for educational purposes only. It is to educate you and all of us so that we know what we have in the product CoreCare and how fantastic this product is. This is the Advanced CoreCare Science Part 1. And CoreCare training is going to be at least Part 3 for now. And I want you to know that CoreCare is a plan of traditional knowledge and scientific innovation. If you think about each ingredient in CoreCare and how it has been used traditionally by others, we put them together in one product that we call CoreCare with some scientific innovation. You know, Hippocrates once said, "Let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food." This is very important for us. We need to know how important our medicine is and our food, because medicine can be the food and food can be the medicine that we have. And we have such a food as CoreCare. I want to remind everyone of what we have in CoreCare. Remember, in CoreCare, we have omegas 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. This is a phenomenal product that has the spectrum of the omegas. But I want you to remember one thing though. Out of all of these omegas, the ratio for omega 3 to omega 6 is way different. Remember, traditionally, our ancestors were having the ratio of 1 to 1. And then here comes the revolution in which we have, new cities being built and more people moving into the cities. And then our diet changed. And it has become more like 25 to 1 and sometimes 35 to 1, according to research studies. But now, in CoreCare, omega-3s to omega-6, there are 10 omega-3 to 1 omega-6. That's the ratio. That is what we have in CoreCare. So what I want to introduce to you is a terminology that we have been using since 2016. It's called nutrigenomics. Nutrigenomics is basically a study of the interaction of nutrition and genes. Remember, what we eat, what we become, and let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. So let's take a look at how nutrition, especially with CoreCare ingredients such as omega-3s, how it works in our bodies and in our genes. Now, if you take a look at nutrigenomics, what we have that we need to talk about is how omega-3s and other omega fatty acids, what are their effects on skeletal muscles, on the nervous system, respiratory system, digestive system, endocrine system, lymphatic system, cardiovascular system, the urinary system, the integumentary system, which is basically the skin, and then the reproductive system, to name just a few, okay? So we'd like to take a look at how omega fatty acids affect these systems. This is one of the reasons why we divide up this training into different parts, because there are a lot more to cover all in one time. So let's take a look at the nervous system. We have the central nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, and we have the rest of the nervous system, the peripheral nervous system and other systems. But all of them are made up by the nerves, and they're very important to know how omega fatty acids helps with the nervous system. So let's take a look at the brain and how it works with the brain. But then we need to ask ourselves these questions. Does omega fatty acids and other ingredients in CoreCare have any effects on brain health? What do the research studies show? You know, as you have seen the parts of the brain, you have the frontal, the occipital, the temporal lobes, and the spinal cord, and different parts of the brain. Okay, it's very important that we have this picture as we talk about these effects. Now, this is a very interesting study on the effects of omega-3 fatty acids on the central nervous system remyelination in mice. Okay, so they wanted to know if there are any injuries to the central nervous system in mice. Will omega-3 helps to remyelinate, meaning to put a new layer of insulation in the nervous system so that it will work better in mice. So they use model in mice and they wanted to see the effects. Does it have any effects? So here's the study, but I want to show you what is the actual take-home message from this study. And I want to choose only 3, okay, even though there are a lot more, but 3 of them is very important to remember. In this study, using this model, we know these things. Number 1, omega-3 fatty acids are capable of modulating the immune system, okay? That is something not new to us, because we know that nucleohydride and nonitas help in modulating the effects, okay? But that is one of the take-home messages from this study. Omega-3 fatty acids are capable of modulating the immune system. That is very important. Number 2, we know that omega-3 fatty acids have anti-inflammatory effects, okay? So in this model, we use the central nervous system and we look at 2 things. We look at demyelination and remyelination. So D means to remove, remyelination means to add on, okay? What do we add on? We add on fatty areas or fatty layers from fatty acids. Remember that all cells requires the omega-3s in their cell membrane, okay? So number 1, again, the omega-3s are capable of modulating the immune system. Number 2, omega-3 has anti-inflammatory effects, okay? And using this model that we just talked about in the central nervous system, demyelination, remyelination. And then last things, number 3, the take-home message from this study is omega-3 has a role in promoting remyelination after a toxic injuries of the central nervous system via 2 things, okay? Modulate the immune system or direct effect on the neurons, okay? So those are 3 very important things we need to know, the take-home message from this study. And a lot of these studies that I will present here, I will also present the take-home message, okay? Not everybody is scientist, and therefore it's important to highlight or take the 3 top things that we can learn. Remember, there are a lot more than 3, but here is the top 3 that we need to remember from that study. Now, in another study, they wanted to look at the importance of the essential fatty acids and what are the possible health implications for the brain. Remember, the brain is very important. It is part of the central nervous system, which are crucial for communications and for electronic impulses that are sent to different parts of the body, okay? So they wanted to see, are there any effects? And if they are, what kind of effects do they have? And what we have learned from this study, and a lot of studies that they also included as part of their citations, are 3 very important things, okay? So if we can just change to that, number 1, here are your take-home messages. Omega-3 fatty acids are essential. Okay, let me repeat that one more time. Omega-3 fatty acids are essential for cellular functions. Okay, remember that omega-3 fatty acids are part of the cell membrane, and cells talk to cells. We call that cell-to-cell communications. Okay, number one, omega-3 fatty acids are essential to cellular function, membrane fluidity. Okay, so the less omega-3 is the membrane is not fluid. Okay, it should be able to change membrane enzyme activities and synthesis of eicosanoids. Okay, these are metabolites from omega-3 fatty acids that also support beneficial effects to our body. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the brain is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA. Now, let me repeat that one more time because this is very important. The brain is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA. Now, you have to ask yourself a question. The older I get, do I still have a lot of omega-3s in my brain, or do I need help with that part? Research studies have shown that the older we get, the less omega-3s in our brain, and therefore we have age-related health conditions, okay? Memory loss, among other things. So we know two things now from this study. And last but not the least, the omega-3 levels decreases in aging, like we talked about before. And in cognition, especially in neurodegenerative diseases. But a balance of omega-3s to omega-6 or omega-6 to omega-3 may help delay these age-related conditions, such as memory loss. Okay, so, and we know that we don't always eat a balanced diet where we have the essential fatty acids. So this is very important. That's why every morning I take my CoreCare, free CoreCare and free SRQ. And depending on what I eat for the rest of the day, I might take two more SRQ. Okay, but I do this religiously every day of the week, 7 days a week. Okay, so those are your take-home messages from the previous study. Now let's take a look at another study. It's important that we look at these studies because they are independent, but they also prove the very reason why we included omega-3s cod oil in core care. Okay, is part of taking care of our core, making our core healthy, making our core to function effectively. Okay, so here's another study, and they wanted to know how does core care impact the brain circulation, or what we normally call as cerebral blood flow. Okay, and how does the omega-3 help, or does it have any effect on the structure of the brain and then the function of the brain? So those are three very important things that they wanted to know in this study. Okay, what are the impacts? So they go through and then they list the importance of omega-3s and then how omega-3s help with this blood circulation structure of the brain and then the function. Okay, so they wanted to know how does it help. And in this model, we learned three things again as our take-home message from this study. Okay, number one take-home message: dietary approach using omega fatty acids have a positive relationship with decreases in the onset of age-related deterioration of brain health. Okay, there's a positive relationship there. Basically, what we talking about positive relationship, the more omega-3s you have in your diet, the more healthy your brains are. Okay, so that's what a positive relationship looks like. Number two, omega-3 fatty acids increase. Okay, let me repeat that one more time because this is very important. Remember, when we get old, we have fat deposits everywhere, okay? Whether it be in the heart, and if we have too much of that, we have what we call the heart attack. if we have too much deposit of cholesterol and fats on the brain, we call that stroke. Okay, this is very important. It's the same mechanism, two different places. Okay, and the older we get, the blood flow, cerebral blood flow is always slower because of other conditions. Okay, but we learn from this. Number two, omega-3 fatty acids increase the cerebral blood flow, enhance the white matter and the gray matter integrity. Okay, that's the structure of the brain, and improve cognition. Remember, the older we get, we used to be just like that. We remember things when we were younger. When we get older, it takes a little bit longer to remember things. Okay, not everyone, but majority. Okay, so remember, the brain is a high energy structure, and it produces a lot of energy, and therefore there are a lot of waste that need to be removed. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why you feel like you have brain fog. One of the reasons why, because of these waste materials from the brain, is a high energy production structure and needed to be removed. So waste are removed and nutrients are brought in. Okay, remember that waste are removed, nutrients are brought in. That is why is the number two things take home from this study, that is increases omega-3 fatty acids, increases cerebral blood flow, okay, and enhance, remember, the white matter and the gray matter integrity, and last but not the least, improve cognitions. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you who have taken CoreCare can feel or explain some of those things that happen to you. Okay, and the last thing that we take home message from this study is this: omega-3 fatty acids have more health benefits, such as increasing the cerebral blood flow, enhance the white and gray matter integrity, improves cognition compared to the animal that receives saturated fatty acids. Okay, so if you think about that, omega-3 fatty acids, very different in benefits compared to saturated fatty acids. They're not the same. Okay, but not all of the saturated fatty acids are created equal. Those of animal derived or animal based, the saturated fatty acids are different from those of the plant-based saturated fatty acids. Okay, so these are our take-home messages from this study. Now, let's take a look at, if we want a picture that should stay in our mind of the importance of omega-3 fatty acids from the same study. Remember, we already talked about the three things. Now let's take a look at the picture. So you have the brain in the middle, and you have structure on the left and function on the right, and you have circulation at the bottom. So if you want any picture to remind you of the importance of omega-3s to the brain, here's one. Okay, remember, on your left you have structure, on your right you have function, and at the bottom of it, of the triangle, you have the circulation, or what we call the cerebral blood flow. Okay, this is very important, and there are very important benefits of the omega-3s. Okay. So let's take a look at a different study. And now we're taking a look at specifically at the resting cerebral perfusion. So there's a difference when you rest and different when you are heavy exercise or walking or any of those kind of things, which is why walking is very important. Exercise is very important, okay? They help with the circulation. You know, some people, some doctors say that the heart is one pump. The second pump is the feet, meaning the feet will have to walk and do exercise, okay? So in this study, they wanted to look at these things here. Number one, they look at the effects of the omega fatty acids on the resting cerebral perfusion in patients with mild cognitive impairment, okay? This is a random controlled trial, and they wanted to know if omega-3s have any effect. And if there are, What are they? Okay. So it's interesting they did not use a model, but they use clinical human studies. So it's very important that we get the meat or the three things that are take-home messages or are very important to us, okay, from this trial. Um, let's take a look at the trial, okay, the three things. Number one, we learned that the cerebral blood flow, okay, in the brain is very different, okay, from what we have outside. Remember the normal 120 over 80, okay, of the blood pressure. Cerebral blood flow is very different from blood pressure, okay? And you gotta remember this. So the normal functioning is 80 to 100, okay? Which is very crucial for the brain health. If you go too high, there's a problem. If you go too low, excuse me, there will be a lot of problems. So you have to be at 80 to 100. That is the optimum, okay? So number one, that's what we have learned from this clinical trial. Number two, uh, we learned from these clinical trials that addition of omega-3 fatty acids to their diet, okay, it really um, showed that so in humans, less cognition showed that cerebral perfusion decreases. So we learned that in humans, those who have cognitive problem, their cerebral perfusion decreases. Okay. Remember, we learned the cerebral blood flow has to be between 80 to 100. If it's more than that, there's a problem. If it's lower than that, there's a problem. We learned from this study that those who have less cognition, okay, forgetting a lot of things and things like that, in this study, show that their cerebral perfusion decreases. Okay. But what happened to those that took the supplementation with the omega-3 fatty acids? Well, what they found is this. They found that the group that they gave them the omega-3 fatty acids, they measure from before and they measure the after. Okay. So before they do the trial, they measure them so they know where the baseline are at for each one of them. And after 26 weeks, and then they measure it again and compare the before and after. Okay, what they found was this. They found there was a increase in the blood flow, okay, number one, and the volume, leading to improve in cognition and brain health. So those are two things. Those are very, very important things. Number one, blood flow is increased and the volume is increased. More nutrients coming out and more of the waste are taking out. And the brain is highly functional energy structure. Okay, this is very important, folks, and it's very important to take our CoreCare. Now let's take another look at the different study. It's good to take different views, different perspectives of research studies, so we have more of a panoramic view of these studies of omega-3 fatty acids and the brain. Okay. Now here's something very important that we need to take a look at. And it seems like that they say the essential fatty acids are very important for human brain health. Okay. And I outlined three different boxes there for you to see. And but I want to show you the three things that we take home from this study. Okay. Number one, we know now that the human brain is 60% fat. Okay, think about that. Majority of the brain, the fat in the brain, um, the brain is made up of 60% the fat, and majority of those fat are omega fatty acids, which are crucial to the functioning of the brain. Okay, it seems that this review of take all the studies we have talked about so far and put them together in a way that will enhance our understanding. Again, number one, the brain is made up of 60% fat, and majority of those fat are omega fatty acids, which are essential for the functioning of the brain. Okay, that's number one. Number two, they found that DHA, which is a part of omega-3 fatty acids, It's essential for the structure of the brain, number one. Okay, it's also essential for the neurotransmitters. Remember, these are the chemical messengers that transmit signals back and forth. So it's very important for the structure of the brain. Remember, 60% of the brain is fat, and majority of those fat are fatty acids. Now we know, summarize of the things, the brain structure is very important to have DHA. The neurotransmitters, okay, very important to have DHA. And then it also tie into the molecules of the immune system, okay? Structure of the brain, neurotransmitters, and the immune system, okay? Very important for us to know. The last but not the least, brain health depends on omega-3 fatty acids. Therefore, a proper diet containing a balance of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids are crucial to optimal brain health. Okay, very, very important. Remember, the balance our ancestors had, according to research studies, was 1 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. And then you have the Industrial Revolution and moving in of the people into one area, okay, to the cities. And then our diet changed. In fact, it has been estimated that it's between 25 to 35 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. You see the unbalance in those? So remember now that we have the ratio for the CoreCare. There are 10 omega-3s to 1 omega-6. This is very important to remember and to know, okay? So we change our focus now. We're gonna look at some of the things that have been heavily talked about in a lot of things. Okay, we want to take a look at brain injury, but a lot of times you think of these brain injuries that are associated with concussions. We have football, we have soccer, we have rugby, and hockey, ice hockey. Okay, I love ice hockey. My son used to play ice hockey. I love the game. Okay, yeah, there are a lot of good fights in those games, and I love them. Okay, they're fascinating. My son used to be the goalie, and we travel on the traveling team, the all-star team. It was so much fun. Okay, but brain injury has also been an issue that every sport seems to be focusing on lately, like the NHL, the NFL, among other sports. Okay, now what we have learned from these brain injuries are very important. Okay, and I summarize them here. You recognize at the bottom of each slide, you have the citation of the studies. So if you want to look up the study yourself, you are welcome to do so. Okay. Now, in these three things here, we learn these things. Number one, traumatic brain injury, like what we have in concussion, reduces the brain capacity to cope with a secondary insult. This is why the secondary insult is crucial, and it becomes deadly at some point if you don't take care or rest enough to get your first injury, brain injury healed. Okay, this is very important for the kids and for those who play contact sports. Okay, so number one, traumatic brain injury reduces the brain capacity to cope with another secondary insult. That's number one. It's very important to know. Number two, how does the brain does that? Okay, there is a protein that we call silent information regulator 2, or SIR2. Here is a very important part of SIR2. Is tasked with the challenging situation to maintain an homeostasis. Okay, when there is a brain injury, that means the brain is not on homeostasis. So we expect to have a lot more, okay, of these SIR2 research studies coming. But what we do know from this study, okay, the SIR2 expression is reduced in mild brain injury. So, and then when you have the secondary one, then it's become much worse, okay? But I want you to think back that we had talked about cerebral blood flow in the brain. This is very important. The brain needs to get it in nutrients and the immune cells in order to heal itself. Okay? Remember, we have learned that thing, which is why it's important for us to know in order to understand this part. So any um, mild brain injuries shows that the SIL2 expression is reduced. Remember, the function of SIL2 is to prepare the brain or help the brain to maintain homeostasis, even when there is an injury, okay? So that we recover. That's basically what it does. Okay? So let's take a different look and from this study as well. It was shown that when omega-3 was used, okay, it decreases, reverses. Remember, the SIL2 decreases. So when omega-3 fatty acids were supplemented, it reversed the decrease, meaning it flipped upside down, goes up, um, increases. Okay, when it increases, guess what? Circulation increases, more waste are eliminated, and more nutrients are bringing in to the brain in order to maintain homeostasis, okay? Or to basically heal the brain from the injuries. It's very important. Number two, we found something interesting here because the AMPK levels were reduced by the brain injury. Now, a lot of you might not know what AMPK is, but needless to say, it's like this. AMPK is basically the energy level, okay? If the AMPK is lower, that means the energy level is lower. If it is higher, okay, that means everybody's excited and move around. Remember, to those who have brain injuries, what do the doctor tell them? Make sure you do no thinking, schooling. You don't do any exercise. You just lay down and rest. Okay, and a lot of them, they go to sleep. They sleep a lot because the AMPK levels are low in the body due to the injury. Okay, and then the last part, it says the omega-3 supplementation reverses that. Okay, brain injury, AMPK levels down. Okay, so when you have omega-3 supplementation, it reverses that. It elevated the AMPK level up. Okay, and then normalizes it, which helps to maintain the homeostasis of the brain. Okay, very important. Remember the three things in this incident. SIL2 is decreased during brain injury. Omega-3 supplementation increases that up. Okay, we learned from previously the brain circulation increases. Okay, AMPK level reduced by brain injury. Omega-3 supplementation reverses that, increases. Therefore, they still have the energy. Okay, very important. So let's take a look more at this type of injuries to the brain and other things that happen to the brain. Okay? Ischemic stroke is a clinical disorder that affects millions of people, but we lack the effective neuroprotective treatments. Okay? Number two, fish oil is known to have beneficial effects against the cerebral ischemia. Okay? We know that. The last but not the least, the mechanisms of how fish oil, omega-3, is beneficial in ischemic stroke has not been fully understood until now. Remember, we talked about previously the stroke and heart attack. There are two different parts with the same mechanism, okay? Same mechanism, but two different areas. So if it happened in the brain, we call that stroke, meaning deposition of high cholesterol and fats actually block okay, the blood vessels that supply them. Therefore, they started to die out. Okay, and have less oxygen. Therefore, we have the stroke. The brain shut itself down. If it happened in the heart, we call that heart attack. The same kind of thing. deposit in the arteries close to the heart and, and the veins, then you recognize when it blocked, it part of the heart that is fed by these also have problems, okay? And the cells started to die out, less oxygen, less nutrition, build out of toxins and waste, and then it shut itself down. We call that heart attack, okay? So we know these three things are very important, how fish oil works. And let's take a look at a little bit more detail of how it works. So they wanted to see these kind of things. So they always do experiment. And here is one of the things they wanted to know. So they want to know if omega-3 supplementation have any effect at all. So they pre-treated omega-3 fatty acids, and then they wanted to take a look at the cells, what happened to the cells, like cell death. So pre-treatment with omega-3 fatty acids significantly, okay, repeat that one more time, significantly reduces the neuronal cell death following an oxygen glucose deprivation, okay? Like what I said before, when there's less oxygen supply, the neurons die, okay? So omega-3 supplementation decreases the number of cells of neurons that die. That is very, very important. Remember, part of the importance of omega-3 fatty acids are the cell membranes, okay? They do the help out with the chemical messengers, and they help out with the immune system, to name a few. Number two, omega-3 fatty acid supplementation activates NAV2, the antioxidant center, okay? Whenever we have this kind of problem, ischemic stroke, the amount of oxidative stress goes up, way up, okay? And it's interesting, NAV2 or NRF2, that is the antioxidant center of the body. Think about it as kind of like your thermostat. Remember, nowadays, thermostat are automatic. So if the temperature drop down, let's say, like in my home, if the temperature drop down below 69 degrees, it activates it, okay? And then the heater is coming on. So during the summertime, if the temperature drop down to 69, it activates the air condition, okay, to make sure it stays at 69. Do you see how important technology is, how important these industrial revolutions are? But it's also very important that we need to pay attention to our diet, okay? Let our food be our medicine and let our medicine be thy food. So omega-3 fatty acids is an activator of NAV2, okay? And then the last two things are these. Omega-3 upregulates what we call heme oxygen 1 or, excuse me, HO-1, okay? Which means, okay, heme oxygen 1 is a stress response protein. When it's activated, because the body, remember the ischemic stroke goes under a lot of stress, oxidative stress at the same time, then it activates NAV2, it also activates heme oxygen 1, okay, to help in protecting the brain from injuries and then to restore the brain into homeostasis, okay? The last thing we learned from this is that omega-3 is effective in helping to protect the brain. Very important. Don't forget the ratio, 10 omega-3s to 1 omega-6 in CoreCare. So let's take a look at one of the ingredients, okay? One of the ingredients in CoreCare is the pomegranate seed oil. You know that this is very important, have been used traditionally, now has been reformulated by innovation, by science, into the modern use, okay? Pomegranate seed oil was evaluated. They have mice that are high-fat diet in obese rats, okay? That's what they were using. So not mice, but rats, okay? And they wanted to know what kind of effects does the pomegranate seed oil have, if they do have any effects, okay? What they found was the high-fat diet induced a significant increase in choline esterase activity in the brain by 17.4% as compared to the normal rats. Okay, and they also found that pomegranate seed oil decreased choline esterase activity in the brain by 15.48%. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the choline esterase is an enzyme that basically, when a message is sent from one nerve to the other, or what we call presynaptic nerve to postsynaptic nerve, that message need to be cut, okay, need to be deleted. Otherwise, it keep on firing itself, okay. So choline esterase is that enzyme that come and take care of that and recycle, okay. So if you have, it shows here that the high-fat diet in rats increases this enzyme, which means there has to be a time when the message is sent from the messenger or the presynaptic nerve and accepted by the messenger or the postsynaptic nerve. Okay, if you have too much of those activity of the choline esterase, that means the message is either cut in half or not even get there. Okay, but remember, this is a model of obese. Okay, high-fat diet induced obese rats. And then the pomegranate seed oil decreases the activity of choline esterase in the brain by 15.48%. Okay, remember your pomegranate seed oil, okay, is rich in omega-5. I want you to know something though, because there are a lot of you who ask me questions about pomegranate. Is that only omega-3 or omega-5 fatty acids? Actually, no. There are a lot of other omegas in there. That's why it took me a few months to categorize all the studies have been done and evaluated, and then recognized together with asking the lab to take a look at the analysis of the cod oil, because I found a study that was done in the 1800s and also in the 1950s. Okay, and then led me to believe that there are omega-11 in there, and sure enough, okay, which is why where you have the spectrum in CoreCare, omega-1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 11. Okay, think about that when you take your CoreCare every morning, how exciting that is. Okay, so let's take a look at the same, okay, pomegranate seed oil, but let's take another look at what are the things that they found in this study. They found these things, that pomegranate seed oil, okay, actually have the following. The high-fat diet significantly increases brain stress, brain and body weight, and the lipid profile disorders in the blood. So in a high-fat diet induced obese rats, these are the things that they saw. Significant increase in the brain stress, brain and body weight increases, and lipid profile disorders increases, okay? But what they found though was very interesting, okay? That the pomegranate seed oil, high in omega-5, reduces brain stress, okay? Number one, high in omega-5 reduces brain stress, reduces the brain and body weight, and modulate the lipid disorders, okay? This is significant finding. So that shows you one of the reasons why we included that in CoreCare, because we are informed by traditional use and then scientific innovations, okay? Here's something that I normally don't do. I have a lot of friends that always ask me, hey, let's go take a hike to the Y. If you are here in Utah, the mountains, they have letters. There is a mountain with the U, mountain with the Y, okay? I am, that's my alma mater, Brigham Young University. And for those of us who don't hike that much, sometimes when we get to higher elevation, if we do take a hike, okay, we find ourselves with problematic in terms of breathing, okay, other than other things. So interesting in this analysis of those who do this, they found these things and are very important. I know that a lot of you are hiking and doing a lot of exercise, okay? Cerebral and pulmonary syndromes in those that are unacclimatized individuals. In other words, those who are couch potatoes, okay? So there are two things that have problems. They have cerebral and they have pulmonary. Okay, cerebral means the brain, pulmonary means the lungs. Okay, among other structures that are connected to. But remember, we have been learning about how omega-3 fatty acids help with the brain, blood flow, circulation, homeostasis, and all these things. Okay, they also found that there is a fluid accumulation in the extra space of the brain, in the lungs and the peripheral tissues for those who are not acclimatized, meaning who hardly do any exercise or hiking in the higher elevation. And then they found this hypoxia increases in the amount as the amount of oxygen decreases, leading to more complications. So in other words, the higher the elevations, the lower the level of oxygen. And those who don't do these kind of things as part of their normal exercise regimens, they will find that they increase in hypoxia, meaning less oxygen in the blood. And of course, it causes a lot of breathing problem and other problems. Okay, so those are the things that they found. Now, normally that they like to see, are there any effects on these things that have been used traditionally, like the sea buckthorn oil? Okay, this is a plant that have been used traditionally. Okay, and the fruits and the leaves and the barks and the roots for different reasons. If you take a look at this schematic of the pathway on your right, on my right, it might be on your left, hypoxia actually drive an increase in the VEGF expression, okay? And then, of course, you have a lot of other problems, especially the one that are highlighted on the red, okay? But they found these things. And remember, this is a plant-based oil, okay? Sea buckthorn berry oil was shown to offer a significant protection against hyperbaric hypoxia, okay? A high percentage of less oxygen in the blood was significantly affected by the sea buckthorn oil, berry oil, okay? Offer a significant protection against that problem. In induced transvascular fluid leakage in the lungs and the brains of the rats. Remember, pulmonary, and then you have the circulatory, okay, on the brain that we talked about before, the cerebral blood flow. And then also they found that sea buckthorn berry oil reduces VEGF, okay, gene expression, which are these are some of the pathways that they have found, okay? That's not all, but they found these two pathways that are affected by the sea buckthorn oil, which are very important, okay? So let's take a look at the heart. We have completed the brain and some of the structures there, the nervous system, but let's take a look at the heart, okay? Remember, we're talking about CoreCare now, and CoreCare is the care of the core of our body, okay? And you have a spectrum, an array of omega fatty acids, if you will, okay? Now, omega-3 fatty acids appear to reduce the sudden death from myocardial infarction, okay? Remember, we talked about before, if there's a blockage, the downstream, the cells and the nerves after that will eventually die off and then what we call a heart attack. Okay. The reduction in omega-3 fatty acid was shown in this study. Okay, at the bottom of the slide, you have the citation. Omega-3 fatty acids appear to reduce the sudden death from myocardial infarction. Number two, the reduction is due to the incorporation of omega-3 fatty acids into the myocardium, which is the cells of the heart. Remember, all cell membranes need to have the omega-3 fatty acids. Okay? And number three, the incorporation of omega-3 changes the dynamics of the sodium and calcium channel functions. Okay? When there's less omega-3s, it throws off the normal function. When you have enough omega-3s, then it restores the dynamics. Okay? Because the heart regulates the sodium, calcium channels, and all of those kind of things. The nervous system too. Okay? These are very important. So in connection with this study, we want to take a look a lot more into details. Okay? In this study, they saw the cardiac and the red blood cells, EPA and DHA, which are omega-3 fatty acids, were correlated and significant. So the P is less than 0.001, very significant. Okay? So the EPA and DHA have different functions in some research. Sometimes they show the same kind of functions or overlap. So different, same, or overlap. Okay? And they also show that supplementation of omega fatty acids increases the EPA, DHA levels in the cardiac tissue by 110%, and also by 101% in the red blood cells. So red blood cells have the DHA EPA ratio, and in the cardiac cells, it also have the EPA DHA levels. Okay, very important. The incorporation of omega-3 helps with its cardioprotective effects. Remember, we always say, so what's omega-3 good for? The first thing we always say, help protect your heart. Well, here's how it helps protect the heart. This is not all, just one. Okay? Now, in the same, they wanted to look more into other areas, and then sometimes you have to look into the tissues, okay? And you have to dissect the tissue, stain them, and look under the microscope, and you can see the differences. This is very important in class. Histology, histopathology classes are very important, okay? They also show that supplementation with omega-3 increases omega-3 fatty acids content in the cardiac tissues, okay? So supplementation with omega-3 increases omega-3 fatty acids content in the cardiac tissues. Very important. Remember, it's cardioprotective, okay? Help with the membrane, help with the chemical messengers. Content of the cardiac tissues in the red blood cells and in the plasma. All of those three areas are very important. Remember, red blood cells bring in the oxygen, takes out the carbon dioxide, right? So, and remember, a lot of these cells, when they're blocked in a heart attack, the cells die because there's less oxygen. So this is very important, increases the omega-3 fatty acids in the cardiac tissues, okay? The red blood cells, remember the function of red blood cells, and in the plasma, okay? Very important things. So, if you have any questions on the things that I just shared with you, please send me an email. Send me an email, afa@sonora.com, okay? Again, afa@sonora.com. Send me an email with your questions. I'll be more than happy to reply to you directly via email. Okay? I hope, my friends, that the things I shared with you, part one now, remember there's part one, we have part 2, 3, and part 4, okay? It's very important. Once you understand, which is the purpose of this presentation, is to educate just like me, I look forward to take my CoreCare every day. Okay, I have CoreCare in my truck. I have CoreCare at home with SLQ. CoreCare and SLQ in my truck. CoreCare and SLQ on my desk to make sure that if I forget for some reason, there is always a place for me to take. Okay. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and don't forget, eagerly and happily take your CoreCare. Much love and respect to you. Bye-bye.